You ever sit in a courtroom and feel the air so thick with judgment you could slice it with a knife? That was the vibe the morning Lydia Carter took the witness stand in Richmond. And I'll tell you, nobody was ready for what happened next. Picture a packed house, media, cops, lawyers, families all squeezed in, waiting for the kind of showdown you usually only see on TV. When Lydia stepped through those doors, wearing this bold orange blazer and carrying a kind of dignity you don't see much anymore, every eye tracked her, some with hope, most with suspicion, and more than a few with something like hatred. You could hear the whispers, "Who does she think she is? Can a black woman really challenge the law here?" Nobody said it out loud, but you felt it hanging there, thick as smoke. Now, you might ask, how did we get here? Let me back up a sec. The whole city had been buzzing for weeks over State Trooper Travis Homana, guy famous for his clean record and colder attitude. The case was brutal. Accusations of police abuse, misconduct, the kind of thing that splits a town in two. Lydia? She was called as the main witness, and if you know anything about her history, you know this isn't the first time she's tangled with the system. In the gallery, the victim's family clung to each other, while the police delegation sat like a single brick wall, eyes hard as ice. When Lydia walked by, people stared or turned away, fingers tapping at their phones, some already angling for a photo or a hot take. Once Lydia sat down, you could feel a kind of hush. Not a comfortable silencino, the kind that signals something's about to break. Travis started his questioning real slow, with that razor's edge of suspicion. "Why are you really here, Miss Carter? Seeking justice, or just the spotlight? You know what I mean?" He kept pushing, accusing her of siding with troublemakers, hinting that her only motive was to rile up the crowd. But Lydia just sat there, steady, answering in that quiet way that cuts deeper than shouting ever could. "I'm here for the truth," she said, and you could tell she meant it. But Travis wasn't done. He dredged up old cases, painted her as some kind of radical, and when Lydia tried to explain, he cut her off, raising the stakes with every word, twisting the knife. Some folks in the crowd nodded at him, others looked away. Still, Lydia never flinched. She just tightened her hands under the table so no one could see them shake. Because that's what courage looks like in real-life fights, not about shouting louder. It's about not backing down when every head in the room is turned against you. And then came a moment nobody will ever forget. Travis, pushed to the edge by her calm, lost it. He marched across the floor, his face twisted in anger, and in front of the judge, the jury, the cameras, and God knows how many streaming online, he struck her just like that, a slap that echoed through the courtroom and across the country. You could have heard a pin drop. Lydia's hair fell across her face, her cheek burned red, but she didn't shed a tear, didn't even look away. The room froze. For a heartbeat. Nobody moved, not the lawyers, not the security, not even the judge. Then, in a rush, phones came out, the judge's gavel pounded, and everything changed. The video hit the internet before Lydia even left the witness chair. Hashtags exploded: justice for Lydia, power and prejudice. People picked sides, some demanding Travis be prosecuted, others mostly police backers calling it a regrettable reaction, nothing more. But one thing was certain, nobody could deny what had happened, not anymore. And that was just the start. The media storm raged. Lydia's face, calm, wounded, but unbroken, became a symbol. The Department of Justice suspended Travis, but police unions and right-wing media rushed to his defense, painting Lydia as a manipulator, a drama queen, maybe even a plant, digging into her old cases, spinning rumors about her motives. Reporters camped outside her house. "Friends, stop calling." The message was clear: stand up to the system, and you stand alone. Yet Lydia never blinked. She'd seen this pattern before. Years ago, she lost her cousin, Devin Carter, to a police shooting in Milford, a case buried in bureaucracy, evidence erased. The only real witness quietly disappeared. Lydia didn't go public then. She went inside, joined the system, took on the toughest assignments, always hunting for the truth others wanted forgotten. And fate, in its twisted way, had brought her right back to the man who'd stood by while her cousin died, Travis Holman. The circle was complete, but this time Lydia wasn't backing down. Even as her own colleagues began to distance themselves, Even his old friends joined the chorus of doubt. Is she doing this for revenge? Is she still objective? Lydia kept digging. She found that the so-called crisis management team inside the police had been shaping public opinion for years, scrubbing files, spinning narratives, even erasing digital trails of inconvenient evidence. This wasn't about one slap or even one case. It was about a whole system built to protect itself at any cost. When her assistant, Maya, confessed to leaking documents seduced by offers of advancement and quietly pressured by higher UPS, Lydia felt the last threads of trust snap. That hurt more than any headline, because sometimes it's not the obvious enemy who breaks you, but the quiet betrayal of someone you thought was on your side. And still, they didn't stop. Lydia's private photos, old texts, fragments of her life repackaged and weaponized, were leaked to smear her character. The message, should someone like this represent justice? It wasn't just about winning in court. They wanted to erase her, make her untouchable, unhireable, unseen. But sometimes, when they take everything, that's when you're most dangerous. Because Lydia, stripped of badge and authority, was finally free to expose what mattered. When Travis, now shunned by his own, realized he'd been used as a pawn, first built up as a hero, then discarded as a scapegoat, found himself at a crossroads. Protect the system or do the right thing. It all came to a head one night. In an abandoned warehouse, Lydia and Travis, former enemies, now fugitives in their own way, compared notes. Every name, every code, every erased file pointed to a secretive ring of power brokers, with one Judge Jonathan Heil at the center. The man who trained them both, who preached about justice, was the one pulling the strings. Hale had created the crisis protocol, orchestrated media spin, and signed off on cover-ups, including the order that led to Devin Carter's death. And so, with nothing left to lose, they launched their own hearing. Not in a courtroom, but on a hacked live stream, using old agency feeds. Lydia told the whole story, mails, files, the chain of command leading back to Hale. Travis showed the phone he'd been given to betray Lydia, the surveillance records tracking their every move. Edmund, Lydia's old mentor, confessed his own role in building the media manipulation machine. And finally, a surprise witness, a systems analyst who'd vanished years ago, came forward with the original footage of Devin Carter's killing. The truth, unedited and raw, played out before tens of thousands. The fallout was swift and brutal. Hale was indicted, the Crisis Protocol Group was dismantled, and every file they'd touched was put under review. Lydia's name was cleared, but she was never allowed back. Her presence was too influential for objectivity. Travis resigned, vanished into the countryside, haunted by what he'd done and what he'd failed to stop. So what does honor mean in a world where power twists justice to protect itself? For Lydia, it was standing up even when everyone else turned away. For Travis, it was refusing to betray the last person who still believed in the truth. And for Edmund, it was finally coming clean about the machine he helped build. Maybe you're wondering, does any of this really matter? It matters if you've ever been misjudged, underestimated, or forced to prove your worth when all you wanted was to do the right thing. Justice is fragile, and it doesn't belong to those in power. It belongs to those who refuse to give up, even when the price is everything they have. So, let me ask you, have you ever been doubted just because of how you look, where you're from, or how quietly you carry yourself? If Lydia and Travis's story strikes a nerve, don't just watch, share it, talk about it. Challenge your own idea of who deserves to be heard. Because in the end, justice only survives when we keep fighting for it, even after the lights go out and the cameras stop rolling. What do you think who really stand for justice, and what price would you pay to see it done? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk about it. And if this story moved you, stick around for more, because sometimes the most powerful truths come from those who've been silenced the longest.